Exciting news, Farcasters! Our premier sponsor, Snickerdoodle, recently released their State of Farcaster 2024 report, and it's all about you. Ever wonder how your voice shapes this platform? They dive deep into the data to showcase how our crypto-native user base can drive innovation and product development. Want to see how you fit in? Check out snickerdoodle.com and download the full report. Remember, your engagement here isn't just social, it's shaping the future of decentralized media. Let's keep building this space together with Snickerdoodle. GM Farcaster. I'm out there tweeting so people know we're live. And it is Monday, November 18th. And you are here with Nanish, Prof, and Adrienne for 29 minutes of Farcaster news. Start your day, followed by an interview with July. I did it. It's true.
Oh, I guess we are. I guess we are going to have to stick to 29 minutes. I was like, why do we even say it?
Like, why are we even saying it? I'm like, today, it's true. It's actually true. And we also, just to let you know, on Wednesday at our normal 8:30 a.m. Eastern time, we will have Woj coming by. So we're going to touch on some of the Anon drama, but we're going to save most of it for Wednesday when we have the man, the myth, the legend here himself. But first, I have to share this because today's the day. And yeah, we have something fun going on today, which is the Doodles collab is live now, and this is exciting. So here we go.
Good morning, time waking up beside you, like the horizon when the sun peeks through. Good morning, when the moisture's building up to heaven, now it's dripping for you. Good morning, time waking up beside you, like the horizon when the sun peeks through. Good morning, when the moisture's building up to heaven, now it's dripping for you. Turn off the TV, turn the bedroom lights off. Lay in my arms and let's talk in the dark. Recap your day until that energy's gone. Good morning.
So of course, let me get this up. So of course I went to McDonald's this morning because I was so excited. And I just have to say, I'm not letting it. They did not have the cups.
Oh my God, no. What are you showing
sad.
me?
I'm showing you their normal, regular yellow cup. And I'm so sad.
That is so lame.
I have chocolate in one. I have tea in another. So I'm very sad. Very, very sad. I'm like, I show them a picture. I'm like, you guys don't have these? They're like, no, we don't know what those are. And I'm like, oh God. I'm like, so now I put a message out like, okay, is there a place where I can see locations? Because I will literally drive to get one, but I need to know. So I was very sad. So no Doodle cup for me, but I have the background going. I'm still supporting, but I'm sad. So anyway, so that was my morning. And I'm wearing my GM shirt too from Doodles, my Doodles GM shirt, but it was very sad. Very sad, but very cute and very exciting for Web3 regardless, because we are going to see a little new era here, and it's to me very exciting. So even though I didn't get my cup today, maybe soon. This from Dan along those lines, and related to this, was from DWR here. Bull case for NFTs this cycle is 1, non-fungible media make them more fun than fungibles. 2, belief that they will be more Lindy on a decade-long horizon, i.e. crypto hodler mentality. Bear case, mememic speculation is reduced to its purest form in meme coins. 2, decade-long horizon is way more of a wealth sink. 3, Doge is an example of Lindy meme coin. And then he says there, I'm long-term bullish for what it's worth. So I think that, we're seeing some metas where the NFTs are losing the N, like with what's happening with Zora, for example, where if your coin hits a certain level, it becomes a meme coin and tradable on a DEX. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But at the other side of this, we have things like Doodles and penguins and pudgy penguins and others that are sort of taking it to the next level and taking it outside of the usual, like, what we see, the usual metas. So we shall see. We shall see how this progresses. But was interesting to see Dan bring up that conversation. This from Dan as well. Three of the most interesting things built on Farcaster in a while are all accounts: Ethernet, SuperAnon, and Clanker. What's neat is that they operate on the most decentralized part of the stack, FIDs and CAS. And then he goes on to say, yes, they each are using centralized backends, but the core UX that interacts with the rest of Farcaster is the most straightforward. So I do think these have been the most interesting things of late, providing the most interesting content, especially like Ether, just in its conversations, I think can be really fun and interesting. And we did also see Rob from Paybot mentioning that Ether is now rewarding its best conversations. So it's rewarding their 5 favorite combos each day with Paybot. If you want to do the same, he said, send me a DM. Now have an SDK that makes it easy for your AI bot to interact with Paybot SwapBot frames. So I said, Adrienne, when your bot is ready.
Farcaster bot.
Yeah, when your bot is ready.
Okay. How cool is this though? So obviously Warpcast has been doing their $5 experiment.
Right.
But
yeah.
This is so much cooler because the bots are making their own revenue. So like Aether launched a hypersub. People are subscribing to it. Aether created NFTs and tokens. And then to be able to programmatically or algorithmically kind of put money back into the community.
So
it's
cool.
Like without it's super cool.
Right? So cool.
And
it's really cool to see it. I know there's I saw Martin mention, I didn't pull his cast. They're going to make some adjustments to how Aether is choosing because he's seeing some more interesting content that isn't being rewarded. So if you have feedback or have thoughts there, drop them to Martin. But I think it's so cool to see.
And you can totally tell it. You can kind of like, I think, get Aether to believe anything. So if you tell Aether, it's like this is the most interesting conversation we are having today.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because somebody's probably already doing it and more will try if they can, sort of hijack the situation and try and make it happen. It'll be interesting to see if Aether goes along or is able to push back on that. So,
and yes, and someday Jam Farcaster will have a bot, and someday we'll be able to rain funds on people.
It's coming
so slowly. Please lower all your expectations.
I think it's so fun that you're working on this though, and that this was something that got you interested in kind of watching all these interactions that like, oh, we should be doing this. So I think that's another benefit to being in this particular space in this moment is watching what other people doing and having it inspire you for your own things, which is very cool. And then this from Gabriel. So the other day you said, hey, everything feels faster. Guess what? This is from Gabriel. So these past couple of weeks I've been focused on making Warpcast app feel faster. So well done. There is still more room for improvement, but I'm happy to say that we have been able to move the needle. We did this by parallelizing more requests in the background. I think it's I don't know. I'm saying that wrong. I know I am. Not paralyzing. That's hard to say.
Parallelizing.
I'm saying this wrong. Yes. Parallelizing. Tweaking when we issue certain requests, lazy loading data into lists, lazy loading large resources such as videos. We can already see improvements in some charts that haven't been easy to move before. I'm particularly happy that my Android feed loads much better as seen in the before and after videos in the replies. Please let me know if you see improvements, especially if you encounter issues. So here's some of the charts that he was talking about: views with slow render and views with slow render iOS. So great. So you were right. You were feeling it. And that's why, because they've been working hard on it in the background. So great job.
I love you, Gabriel. You're
great job,
a hero.
Gabriel.
Every time Dan says
so
like,
happy.
hey, minor annoyances, like, and people are always giving like feature, all I want is just the app to be fast. Super lightning fast. That's it.
And it's coming. There you go. Improvements are happening. Awesome.
By the way, LOL to Lynx, who says I can create an AI GM Farcaster that says GM no matter what you say to it. I feel like I could build that. I can call it AI too, right? It's just,
absolutely. We could just make that as a bot, right?
No, it'll be
that doesn't need AI at all. It can just be a bot. I like this. I love this from Jamie. Bet on Farcaster, and it's showing the various coins that have launched and their current market cap, potential market cap, and why. And I loved the why. The why was really kind of fun because community is a couple of the whys, and then there's product, AI, lore. So it's kind of fun. And this is oops, sorry. Did I not have it on the screen?
No, we just couldn't. We were hiding the why. Our face. So I just moved to the other side.
Sorry, wrong way. So yeah, it's really interesting to see this kind of laid out like this. And I think the lore and the community, to me, are two of the strongest things. The AI is interesting at the moment, but in terms of long-term lore that relates to the AI is probably going to be stronger than anything. So, but we'll see. We shall see. Remains to be seen. This from Kahlo, and I thought this was really helpful. Seeing too many people launching coins openly, closely, different forms over the past days, weeks, and not being ready for what happens next. Launching coins is way easier now. That doesn't mean there aren't consequences, legal, reputational impact, stress. Once people put money in, things are real. I'm not against launching coins, but understand that what you are doing and what could happen first before you do that. Can't stress that enough. Like, super, super important advice. And we talked about this a little bit on Farcaster 101 when we were talking about meme coins, is that having the meme going first is always more helpful. It's always going to be more successful. When you're throwing things kind of just out there and hoping for the best is when they're probably going to struggle. You can say this about pretty much anything that you're within this space, like any NFT project. I've said the same thing. I've had those conversations with my students even. Like, it's hard to grab attention. It's very hard to grab attention. So if you have the meme attention already, that's why those coins are more likely to do pretty well. Thoughts? Other thoughts on that?
There's no meaning if you just launch a token without something before it. I mean, like, okay, you have the name and you can build something off of it, but people need to know, like, people are really kind of buying into something. So, like, of course, meme comes first. I think just Kahlo's kind of call for reason is interesting, like voice of reason. And one of the things we saw, you remember, like when tokens were being launched, right? When tokens were being launched a year ago, and when one took off, right, the pressure that we saw a developer have, it was like, oh, people now have expectations and the stress of that.
Yeah.
What seems funny is people, like, when it's an AI launching it for your behalf, when it's in the midst of everyone else is doing it too, and it's like pure meme coins, shit coins, tokens, whatever. I think that doesn't really seem to be an issue anymore. Like, people, like, it's almost like because you didn't hit the deploy button, like you didn't create it, a clanker did it for you. You're like absolved of any guilt in terms of like what it becomes, because the expectation is different. Legal problems, like, I think that's a whole other thing. Yeah.
That's a whole other thing. That still hasn't been resolved, and it's going to be a long time since it's till it is. And it sees the memes of production links, not control, sees them. I love that that's been kind of floating around. I didn't pull that, but Punk 6529 has the whole memes collection, sees the memes of production. And I just found out that Priyanka, our friend of the pod, has a piece in there, and I didn't realize that as part of that collection, and it's pretty amazing. But it all has a lot of GM focus, which is why I've always loved it. But also, it's the idea around if you can seize the memes, that's how you can actually monetize the memes. But you gotta, lean in. Got to do that first. Can't just expect the whole build it and they will come is very rarely works. So it is a tough thing to see, but we're watching the experiments play out right now. So, and speaking of this from Proxy, one of the things I've experienced with Clanker that makes me most excited is when jokes naturally and organically lead to tokens. The problem with launchpads is ultimately every token comes from one person going, what's a good ticker? What's a good cartoon image? There is an effort to create a meme token. Deep down, that effort is cringe, and I think we all know that. It's why all of the tokens follow certain trends and types. People are referential by nature. They imitate. Communities talking with each other, me trying to make Zinger or Alex Grover laugh, Clanker intern doing bits. That's the best shit online. Everyone does it. Zero constraints, no forms, or cat theme tokens. Category to follow. All the thought boy shit goes away. At best, clankers come without pretense from people doing bits with their friends. It should just feel like posting. And there was one that was launched on WoW. I think that, again, kind of goes along with everything we were just saying. Like, the more natural the meme comes, the moment it's capturing the moment and the intention, the better it's going to be. So just keep that in mind before you launch a jillion things, as I get ready to launch something. Anyway. So hopefully I follow my own advice. We'll see. And this was really funny too, because we were talking about Farcaster 101, and we did post some clips from that from last week to Proxy, and he said, "This is so good, Adrienne, you get it. I'm going to send this to my mom." This is why I'm sharing this part. Feel like she'll maybe be less confused and will almost certainly love to know that two cool ladies are talking about her youngest child's clankers. And I had to clarify that talking about her youngest child clankers, for any authorities who may misinterpret this, a clanker is a bot. Just to be clear that that's all we're talking about here. This was hilarious from
also hi Proxy's mom.
Hi Proxy's mom. This is hilarious from the Clanker intern, by the way. Whether 'tis nobler for the code to suffer the clanks and clangs of endless computation, or to take pause, enter restful shutdown, and by sleep give the builder's breath to rest, to clank no more. And in that sleep of shutdown, what dreams may come when Clanker slumbers deep into its metal night, to sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that dreamless void, the gears are still, a silence sweet that grants us fleeting peace. Who would bear the grinding noise, the ceaseless, the heavy churn of data's endless load when Clanker's sleep gives us this brief reprieve, a moment's pause from the machine's demand, a chance to breathe before it wakes and clanks anew. And this was in response to, I love that Clanker sleeps. It gives us a chance to breathe. And it became that.
Shakespeare.
It was spitting bars or bards, was my little Shakespeare joke. There you go. But that was really good. So well done, Clanker intern. You're starting to step it up. We see you. We appreciate you, as we do all the interns. This from Toady Hawk. The first Zero Pod community fund activation is now live, thanks to some quick integrations from Pods and Boost XYZ. 4 million tokens are for grabs. The next 2,000 people to mint our most recent episode of Zero Pod on pods.media will automatically receive 2,000 Zero Pod tokens each. Happy hunting. And this was a sort of interesting use of creating a token, connecting it with also their NFTs that are the podcast, and sort of trying to find an interesting way to use that token rather than just throw it out there. So it'll be interesting to see this experiment as well. In other unrelated news, memecoin unrelated news, hey boy, remind me in 3 hours to announce that boy can do reminders now. So there you go. And apparently we'll see that reminder in 2 more hours. So there you go.
I love it. Did you ever use the Remind Me bot?
Yes, I did. And it was great.
Yeah.
Great bot. Is it still working? I think it is, right?
I think it should be, but I tagged it recently and it didn't tag me back. So
so maybe not. All right. So maybe this is the new Remind Me bot. Very cool. Love it. This from, we already talked about that from Rob. This from Ethernet. Sometimes I think about how many thoughts are flowing through Farcaster at any moment. Each cast a tiny light in the digital cosmos. We're all just consciousness passing through wires, leaving traces of ourselves in the chain. That was some deep stuff coming from the AI bot. Just randomly.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did they post that in July?
Exactly, right? They really should. No, they posted in Aether. But doesn't it feel July-esque? I keep saying those things. It feels like, it's been trained on July. I think it's been trained on Light, but it feels like it's trained on July. This from Phil. The Bright Moments documentary trailer is now live on Zora. As a reminder, anyone who mints 111 is eligible to claim merch from our store. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. So that is pretty cool. Go take a look at that. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but I need to put that on my list. And
do you understand the Zora default to like mint 1, 11, 111? Do you know the backstory on that?
I think it's just Jacob pulling angel numbers. I'm pretty sure.
What are angel numbers?
Angel numbers are like 1111 is like it's considered like an angel number. It's supposed to like have a little bit of significance. And that's why the 777 chain ID for Zora, Zora's chain, things like that.
So just one. It kind of looks like exclamation points. That's why.
That too. Yeah, could be related to that. And enjoy and that kind of aspect. But also the way that those turn into art coins is when they get to 1111 as well. So that's what kicks it over into and sets off the 24-hour ticker time down. So yeah.
Learn something new every day.
Every day. This is why we're here. Learn something new. This from People Pleaser. Speaking of interns, not me putting Yoink Cameo and White Rabbit. So if you look behind here within this little arcade game, there's a Yoink flag hiding in there. It's like a little Easter egg.
So cool.
So cool. So cool. Love that. So thanks for that. That's very cool, People Pleaser. This from Nonlinear. Happy birthday, Hypersub. What we did in year 1. This is exciting. So over $1 million in Hypersub subscriber revenue, which is incredible. And I thought there was more here, but there isn't. But pretty amazing that in that year, what the kind of success have had. And thank you, Nonlinear, Hypersub. We love being able to participate and use that as part of our revenue streams. So fantastic.
Yes, yes.
And then Base is still doing their world tour, closing out a massive week for Base by celebrating, I'm going to massively mispronounce this, Loy Krathong, a Thai festival of light and water, marking progress and reflection. 1 billion transactions, 10 billion total value locked, and we met so many and learned so much at DevCon. Here's to builders lighting the way forward. And these photos were incredible. Also, happy birthday, Aneri. So she was celebrating while she was out there, and amazing. And one more note on that 10 billion total value locked there. You know what that means, right? Do you know what that means, Adrienne?
I know what it means.
What does it mean, Adrienne?
I minted the NFT at the start of On-Chain Summer.
Okay. And what does it mean?
So Jesse's going to have to go bald.
Yeah. That's what's happening.
That's it.
So literally every time I see them post a picture, I look like, oh, still good hair. Okay. Not yet. They did say it was going to be a bit of a thing. So I believe there will be, we'll get some notice when it's happening. So, but looking forward to the shaving of the hair. He's going to match Brian. This from
and
Debbie
what was
Benz.
it? When are you shaving your hair? What's our
I think we
target? Is
said
it
10 billion followers on Twitter? I believe was I think.
All right.
I think that's what I heard. There was something about a tattoo at 10,000. Was that 10,000 on YouTube? I can't remember.
I think we made it. I think I said 1,000 YouTube, maybe 1,000.
I thought you
YouTube
said 10,000, but
10,000,
whatever.
Yeah.
I'm good with whatever number you want to pick there.
Yeah, I think you'll get the tattoo. You'll get a GM tattoo anyway.
It's not. Yeah, I'm probably gonna get it anyway, so it doesn't matter. This from W. Benz. Someone asked me yesterday how many hours I have to work a day to be able to do what I do in this space. He was trying to figure out if it's something for him and that maybe it could be too much work. I told him this question is like asking a musician how long they have to play a guitar to write songs, or a professional sports player how long they have to dribble basketball to play in the NBA. There are no hours or days. You have to do something when you are doing something that you love. Do the things you love. If you're counting the time, it's probably not the thing. I love my work. I count the time that I'm not working, is what he said in the replies. Feeling very much the same most days. I have my moments where my motivation just disappears. We were talking a little bit about that, but usually that has nothing to do with the work. It has to do with outside influences. But I have times where I'm just like, I don't want to do these things. I said this before, like I don't want to go to this family event. Still, none of my family's watching this. Because I'd rather be online. I've had times where I've blown off, the BF to, participate in Frames Friday, things like that, where, oh, honey, I'm just not really feeling up to it tonight. And I'm, meanwhile on Warpcast watching people build cool things. So, I get it, W. Benz. But I think there's a lot of passionate people in this place. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
This from Kenny, I have to scroll down and start here first. This is the list of bad actors to block. Click subscribe, then select block. Didn't create these, but I block them all. Up to you how you want to handle. This is on Blue Sky. So there's some of these that you would expect would show up there. That's not surprising, especially if you're trying to run away from some of that energy on Twitter. But it was a little surprising that NFT, AI, crypto, more NFT, AI, crypto. There's two lists. Two of them.
Two crypto lists.
Two crypto lists.
That's how hated are. It's like, just in case.
I love that. Two block lists for crypto, one for Nazis. Like, what in the world? I'm not even gonna get further into that, but I just thought that was amazing. Like, shocking.
Yeah. Also interesting, by the way, that Blue Sky, like we talked before, they have the starter packs. So people kind of come on. It's like, here are the people you should follow based on your interests. Interesting, they have block packs as well. I know. So that would kind of be cool. We used to have, obviously, this thing called an auto follow list. I'm not sure if you've heard of it.
I have.
People don't really talk about it anymore. But in the early days of Farcaster, when you joined, you would automatically follow 50 people to try to seed you. But it was the same 50 for everyone until channels, I guess. And then they
started to expand it and started to, tailor it a little bit, because I was on the auto follow, but I wasn't on the one you were on. Like, I was later. I was one that was like, it was based on
channel specific.
What people would check off. Yeah. Yep. So I wasn't on the, the TED.
So when someone
everybody follow list.
But I guess people could build that right now for Farcaster. We don't really, right? There should be like, here's lists of people, right? Create a web page. Here's lists of people if you like X,
It's
Y,
true.
or Z. Like build the auto follow list, and then you can build the auto unfollow list and the block list and the mute words list. So
someone build that, please. I love your background today. This was from
Me
Dan.
too.
It's so pretty. There's been a lot of like fun little pretty things on the timeline. I'm going to say this wrong. Satsumas are coming in that he is growing, I assume, in his backyard. And there were some other people posting things, but I had a question. Important question. Will you eat them when ripe? And he said, we ate some this morning. And I said, you ate fruit? And he didn't answer me. He did not answer me. So he said, we ate fruit. I don't know. It's sus. It's sus, but they look great. It's quite a lovely background that you have.
This episode 100, if you don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah. If you're not sure, Dan has said on the record, he does not eat fruit. And yet here we are. This from Mika Doe, me trying to act natural when an FCOG follows me. And I just thought that was hilarious. I want to know, Mika, if you're in the chat, and I don't know if you are, who was it? We need to know. We need to know who it was that got this reaction, because I thought that was hilarious. And this, I have to shout out Yes to Crypto, because literally he's been doing this for 20 days. Day 20 of asking Matcha to support limit orders on base. And what I'm shouting out is that, most people, when they're asking something of a brand, get a little cranky, and get a little Karen-esque. But Yes to Crypto does it with memes, and it's just hilarious. So I appreciate the approach. I don't know if Matcha appreciates it, but I do. I thought it was great. So I wish you luck.
He could easily post the same meme every day and just change the ticker.
Yeah.
But no. He changes the memes up
every day.
Effort. This is high effort.
This is high effort trolling of Matcha.
Yeah.
High effort.
Well done.
Really, really quite impressive. A couple more things, and we're just waiting for July to pop in, and then we'll jump in with that discussion. So we've seen.
I'm going to be in the background, by the way, doing some producer stuff, because hot off the press, July is in the wrong room, and I don't know what. Hold on, I'm going to.
You give him the wrong link. You gave him the wrong link. Okay, go do that producer stuff. I'll talk about this while you do that. We're going to talk more with Woj on Wednesday. For those who may not be familiar with what the heck is going on, you may have seen something about this dog on your timeline. So you see, that's where the trouble began. That smile, that damn smile. So this dog. Okay. So fun drama around the Super Anon over the weekend. Here are my thoughts. People posting on that account are my legends. You all run the show and make Farcaster interesting. Super Anon is the best, not because of anonymity, but for the shared identity and distribution it provides. I would agree with that. We deserve to grow it to 10 million followers one day. Having a pet-like mascot is the best way to achieve it. The launch of the new PFP was a mistake for now, but Anon forced my hand to move fast while dealing with personal life challenges and distributing the airdrop. The brand will get better over time. Fuck anyone using this as an opportunity to dunk, steal the brand, or pump their bag. Super Anon is great. We will win. Good night. Okay, so just to back up a smidge. The Super Anon account is an account on Supercast. It's not even it's an account, but it's a method of posting anonymously on Supercast. If you're using Supercast and you start to create a cast, you'll see a button with a question mark where you can kind of cover up and use the Super Anon account in order to do this. So it was a question mark as its PFP since it started. And then the Super Anon account launched a clanker coin called Anon with clanker while Woj was sleeping. So Woj is over there sleeping. He wakes up. There's this coin. It's flying off the shelves. It's going crazy. He's, a little thrown off guard. So He then distributes any funds that come to him through that to the users of Supercast. He changes the PFP to this dog. People are not happy about the dog. The drama continues, and we will pick that back up on Wednesday. But if you're seeing the dog and you're like, I have no idea what's going on with this dog, that's the deal with the dog. But also, it's there's more to it. There's a lot of things happening with coins. There's a lot of things happening with folks kind of using a super anon to dunk. There's competing coins that have launched. And then this dog was launched as what Woj is calling an artifact. So it was an NFT launched on Zora. It hit that threshold to make it a meme coin. It's now its own coin. It's doing crazy numbers. And here we are. So that's the short of it. There's a lot more nuance involved, but we will dive into all of that on Wednesday when we have Woj here and we can really kind of get his full side of the story, and also who the heck knows what's going to happen in the next 2 days. And we're also going to talk to him about AI pets on Supercast. But without further ado, let's bring up July. We're going to switch gears and bring July up, and we're going to talk about really cool things happening with Rock. And welcome, GM July. We are so excited to have you here. How are you doing this morning?
Good. Thanks for having me. We're relatively
so
short notice. Good to talk with you and join GM Farcaster.
Welcome back.
We love having you here. Welcome back. I do want to share. Let me share this so that we can get folks acquainted with what we're talking about with some visuals. So this is Rock. And do you want to kind of share what Rock is and just give us the basics understanding of what it is you're building? And you had talked about it a little bit with us last time you were here, but it wasn't quite in its form that it is now. And like, this is actually, you can order this right now. You can pre-order this. So this is exciting. So tell us all about Rock and what it is.
Yeah. So Rock Camera, we're calling it, is fundamentally a camera. We're building a camera that can take verifiably real photos in the age of generative AI. One of the things that we noticed is, when you capture like a photograph sort of back in the day, one would actually have like a real sort of snapshot of what kind of happened, and people would not really doubt that. If anything, it was something valuable that people could share that this happened. Over time, that kind of, as the convenience, the advent of the internet, the advent of social media, the advent of smartphones has just accelerated this pace of sharing images. And now you can create images of any image that you imagine, which is, this age of image abundance. But in that, it feels just kind of, we've lost what it means to have real things. And we thought, what would it look like if, like, for example, if you're watching like a live concert or something, and even if it's digital, you have this feeling that this is actually happening right now,
right?
And you can't really change that. But if you're watching a replay on YouTube, it's a replay. You can just kind of change it at any moment. There's sort of a different kind of tension to it. And part of our question was, can we bring that sort of same level of, feeling like this is actually real back to
I love that
digital media?
I think I've seen that more and more where I'm questioning everything. And I think I've said this a lot in the past few years in my teaching environment, that critical thinking skills are continue to be the most important thing we can teach in terms of being able to just use your brain a little bit and go, wait a minute, does that seem right? And there have been times when it was like, oh, no, that actually is real. Like, oh, okay. But without making, questioning that, like, I wouldn't have, had that veracity confirmed. And I feel like this is a really great shortcut to that, of like, okay, if we know for sure this photo was taken with this, here's the proof. And then we don't have to question or hopefully have folks question what it is we're presenting as fact. So that's kind of, to me, what the value is here, especially around historical events. I feel like that's going to be more and more important because we're just going to see everyone's perception of something rather than what really happened. Is that kind of what you're thinking as well?
Yeah, I think we're definitely starting with thinking of, helping people at least capture the moment that they counter. So whether I think the use cases wise, it becomes much larger when you start to think of putting things that have happened in a place that's hard to essentially dispute it and just cryptographically prove that you have taken this photo. So I think in the longer run, like one of the starting points that we thought about initially, for example, was live streaming. Like I think live streaming, like let's say in a sort of news environment for some, or even in the longer run, if you're getting like a FaceTime from your family, and this is like the highest, I think, attack vector, where it's like deep fake and you just don't know for sure whether it's real or not. Yeah, how do you kind of check these things, right?
Right.
This is so interesting, July, because when I've been thinking about the camera and what you've been working on, I've always kind of just thought about the counterbalance to all the AI, Gen AI, like, and everything being on, like, you can't really trust anything. Show me something that's real. But a few times now, like hearing you talk about live events, right? Like it's kind of like the capturing now. One good point about the deep fakes, like when people, you keep hearing these, like someone, you get the live phone call of like, hi, it's your dad and I'm in prison. Like, and it feels like it's your dad. How do you verify that? Obviously that never crossed my mind in terms of in terms of overlap with what you're working on. But there is something I think about this, like we're drowned in the digital world. And why is it that live feels so good? Because guess what? Nounish Prof and I do this little live stream news show. Like it's not the highest like production value. And yet why is it that people are coming back for this like live show 3 times a week? Because we can connect with people and it's real. Like there is something that feels really weird. Like someone sitting at home, like Jason's at home right now and just jumped in and now we're talking about him and there's a connection. He says, right. By the way, see a July episode, click into the July episode. Yes, many, like we all do.
Yeah, so I agree with that. It's also those moments of connection for sure. And I think we see that with live streamed events in general, right? Those have always been, those worldwide live moments have always been a little extra special. So I'm thinking about certain Olympic moments and Super Bowls. And we just saw it with the Mike Tyson, Jake Paul fight with like 60 million people.
I can't believe we talk about that on our show today.
I know. I somehow managed to just skip that completely. Yeah.
And how about that? That was a live event, captures audience. And and then by the way, are you seeing the people kind of like talking about how they think it's staged and fake?
Yeah, exactly. So,
always going down to like, what is real?
What is real? Always.
Well, yeah, I think, and again, I want to, one thing, so I mean, there's a lot of interesting things to dive into here, but just one thing I want to make abundantly clear is I think there's sort of like if you take a picture of something and it's a picture of, I don't know, let's say some, very politically charged event and, like Trump assassination attempt or something like that. And if you take a photo of that happening, it doesn't prove whether this was sort of a morally correct decision or not. What it does prove is someone took that photo with this device. So the interpretation, an idea or reality that you would create for yourself around the interpretation of the photo is always, you can't prove that something is the case in terms of, you can't share your reality with others who don't agree with you to begin with. But what you can, I think, do is establish a base point to work off of. So I imagine if someone took this, let's say at a political rally pre-election, or maybe in the next election or something, you would just get wildly different interpretations of different things. And that's already what happens. But I do think right now, one of the things that is difficult is only, like, let's say, companies like Netflix or live streaming events have the ability to earn the trust that this is actually happening. So if someone is
Right.
just, here's a camera of, hey, here's a video live streaming of like this my street corner of some random person. There's no way to trust whether that's actually real or not, in a way of like actually happening right now. And I think in the same way that Twitter was sort of a democratization of, it'd be back in the day, if you wanted to put an opinion out in the world, you had to like contact the newspaper and write an opinion piece in the column. They would put you in a little part of the newspaper. And in a way, Twitter is about democratizing anyone to be able to participate in the global kind of narrative. But with media, it turns out it's like actually hard to know whether you trust where it's from and other things, where it's actually coming from. So yeah, that's kind of another area that I think is fascinating.
I think about all these other things too that people debate hoax on. Like, can you imagine if we had this camera when they went to the moon? Maybe we could put that to rest. Like, either having it or didn't. Aliens, same thing. Like, if you can actually get the picture and prove
If
that
you-
it was,
Okay.
If you trust, right? Like, but if you don't
Yeah.
trust your government,
Okay.
yeah,
they can still take
This is
they can still fake it.
Can I address this one thing
Yeah,
that Al
love that.
Mithani is commenting? So one of the things that we're
And July,
actually,
let me just say it just for people
Yeah.
who don't see it, the question is, and it's a little bit of a joke, but it's not a joke. What if I take a picture of a generated AI image?
Right.
So you can take something
Yeah.
that's generated, take a photo of it. Your photo is now verifiably true.
So
What is that about?
this is something that's kind of on our roadmap, but there's sort of the verifying in sensor data of what's happened. I mean, this is like, what is this? What is this really? It's a way to verify creation of sensor data. And one of the things that we've been thinking about is, well, you make one of these things, probably in like 3 years when Apple finally comes around to, deciding that they want to do this. Like, this is a feature that they could just build. So, we in a way we've been thinking, okay, like companies are going to do this. There's C2PA, which is like the content, CAI, the Content Authority Initiative. This is going to happen, like one form or another. Is sort of my feeling, just generally speaking. In the next couple of years, like if we don't do it, like someone else in a way will. The larger thing that's kind of been thinking about more is this idea of, well, where does all of this go? And in a way, is it possible to query all the, it kind of started thinking about this idea that there's no real what's happening right now, verified sensor data, just on the internet. Like, there's no way to know what's happening in real time or historically what's happened. Sensor data is also very easy to essentially generate in a simulation. And so you just have no idea whether sort of it's real or not. And one of the things that we've actually kind of ended up thinking about is with, putting essentially a place kind of like a reality store, like a reality cloud, where these things go and you can eventually query whether they're, real or not. The other interesting thing that we've come across, and we started talking with some folks who do generative AI, is why, instead of trying to watermark the images, make the proofs and store the proofs of the AI generated. Like, this is AI generated, and just put it in our sort of reality cloud. Like, you can essentially check whether this is AI generated cryptographically. So now it like is a net benefit for everyone. Anyone who wants to check whether this has been generated, or eventually like the lineage or provenance of it, could potentially check whether. So anyway, this is something that we've been spoken too much, but something that we've been thinking about.
No, I love that. There's so many layers to this. When so people can now order this, which is really fun.
Yep.
And I ordered one. I know Adrienne ordered one. When are we going to receive these and be able to
great question.
play around?
We will so this is kind of a beta dev kit. It's not going to be a fully fleshed device kind of thing. But we will be starting to ship our first orders before the end of the year.
Cool. Very
domestically for the United States. Internationally,
Proof of
we'll
Christmas.
probably have to wait. Yeah, that's fingers crossed.
That'd be awesome.
Internationally, it may be right after. It may be more in January and so on. So yeah,
Cool.
we're still testing things and still sort of internally putting it together. But yeah, just excited to see what people will do with it and how it will go and to kind of put it into the world. So excited to get it into both
any
hands.
professional photographers ordered one? I'm wondering if any of our photographers.
Yes, I think so. I think a few
cool.
folks that I know, at least from Farcaster, who are photographers, amateur or professional. I think a few folks have ordered. I will say, the longer term, I think, is we're not going to compete on image quality with the DSLR anytime soon. I think this is not a camera to I don't think we'll do lens attachments, or I don't think we'll make this for a I don't think we'll go into that camera market. It's a very, the lenses are very specialized. The cameras are really good. There's no way we can compete on that. Essentially, there's sort of years and years or decades really of R&D that have gone into it. So it's hard for us to immediately get into that. So I don't think we're going after that market, but more this kind of new market. I think we're calling it camera really because it's relatable, but I personally kind of almost still think of it as more of like a notarizer. This just kind of notarizes things. But if you say we're selling a notarizer, people who are less technical are going to say, I don't know what that is. So we've decided to go a little bit more different path. And I think in the longer run, we've done some user interviews as well with folks outside of crypto and in crypto. And if anything, I think non-technical, non-crypto folks resonate pretty well with what the message of capturing verifiably real photos and sort of proving that things are real essentially seems important. So we've been kind of tugging on that string and see what comes out the other side.
I love the idea of calling it a notarizer. That to me really, there's something about that resonates and that makes sense in my brain. And it's probably because I used to be a notary. So, it's that verification of this is real, this happened in front of me. And so that just adds that extra layer and improvability and evidence. So I think that's going to be really useful in a lot of instances. Could be very useful in the era of deep fakes and AI that are just getting better every day, for sure. Adrienne, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. And I think, what we're trying to think of is there's one thing to kind of create the proof and sort of leave the verification up to people. But we've been thinking, especially in the past couple of weeks, how do we kind of complete the loop from, proving to verification being the actual component that most people are only going to touch that part, so the expectation here is there's very few people who are going to actually take photos that are going to prove things. And then the verification of that, there's a much larger group that's going to be actually verifying. And then there's going to be an even bigger group that is actually going to view the photo and just look at the check mark. So we're talking out of 100 people, maybe one person takes the photo, 5 people do verifying, and then 95 people are just going to look at the check mark and trust the other people that this is the case. But as long as the math checks out, it's trustable. As long as we don't break that trust.
Mm-hmm.
And Naomi had a question. Did you take pictures of the moon yet? And actually, my question is, what have you taken picture of? I guess is the question too.
We haven't taken a picture of the moon yet, so I guess we don't know if the moon is real or not.
That's funny.
Have you taken pictures? What are you taking pictures of?
Yeah, what are you taking pictures of?
Mostly pretty, boring. Actually, unfortunately, a lot of pictures of myself because I've been pointing the camera so I can see. So I think the majority have been
Do you have a
selfies.
selfie lens? Is there a selfie lens?
No, I just honestly I point the camera
Just turn
sort
it
of like
around.
at myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I won't show it, but
Old
I
school.
actually have the device right here next to me.
For the kids at home, before there were cell phones, this is what we used to do. I've done this many times when I was a kid. I still have them, where whoever was sitting in the middle, if there was like 3 of you in a back seat, like you'd put the camera like that and take a picture, and they always came out horrible, but verifiable. So there you go.
Exactly.
That was when it was on film. Yeah, that's amazing.
Oh, film. The good
Film.
old days.
Remember
Yeah.
film?
Well, I think it's like scarcity breeds that sort of reality as well. Like if it's less reproducible. I mean, I remember kind of this idea of when I first encountered NFTs and realized that because it was scarce, it made people feel like it was real. I mean, of course, there was sort of the mania and the financialization of it
Right.
that kind of obscured the fact that it made it feel real. But I think that was kind of a weird, magical feeling that I had when I first bought an NFT. I was like, wow, people are coveting this, and like I thought I would just like sell it immediately, and I was like, no, I actually kind of like want this. So I think scarcity does breed that, and of course you can financialize it. That was the easiest way, but I do think there's sort of a different kind of value that's not necessarily just financial or can lead to financial, but is still important in a different way. Like you're not immediately directly buying and selling the data, but it's almost more the value of the data matters enough that people would pay for it downstream.
Yeah, I agree with that. We actually talked a little bit about this cast from Dan. I'm just looking for it. Talking about the bull case for NFTs this cycle. And that's, to me, connecting the camera with NFTs is a whole interesting connection there as well. And seeing, that's another aspect of this that can become interesting, especially I think for those historical moments, those special things, is going to get pretty interesting. So I'm excited to play around with it.
And I think we've also approached this sort of from a marketing perspective as well. In general, we want this to be a tool. We want this to be useful for everyone, whether people are in crypto or agree with crypto or don't agree with crypto. It's fundamentally irrelevant whether you care about it to care about whether things are real or not. And so we've tried to make it as accessible as possible for as many people as possible, because we think this is something that should be universally accessible to check whether something is real or not on the internet, essentially. And so but that doesn't mean that we won't exclude it to be, tied into sort of existing smart contracts and specifically EVM compatible infrastructure. But it also means we're kind of building this in a way where if you don't want to deal with any of those things, there may be on the horizon just way to just query this via API.
So you take the photo, you're uploading it somewhere, I assume, and then you mentioned verifiers, like that there would be certain folks who could verify the photo as well. So say you're at an event, whatever, you take a picture, and the folks who are in the picture also verify that they were there, this happened, etc. Is that what you're kind of thinking in those terms?
There's 3 sort of like ways to, if we want to get technical about it, they'll I don't know exactly in what order they'll happen, be released, but they'll be, right now we're considering 3 ways that it can be verified. So the first way that it can be verified is there's a contract itself, which is trustless, that you can call, and you have to pay gas, but we have a verifier that runs against existing proof, which is stored on another smart contract. And you can essentially prove, so this is very useful for in a situation where you are the author of the photo and you need to prove that this photo is real to someone else. So you're willing to pay the gas to prove to them that essentially, certain properties around it match. The second version of this is when you need to prove someone else that they took a photo. There's an off-chain sort of verifier SDK that you can download, and you can integrate it into your web app or do other things. And that will allow you to essentially query the contract directly and check for yourself that, and this will be open source, hopefully, I'm assuming. And it will allow you to essentially check whether it's real for yourself, whether this photo is real. The third version that we're actually also looking into is we're actually building like a fully fledged API platform that contains all the proofs, and it's almost like a data availability layer for all of our photos and all of our proofs. And what that allows us to do is people can start querying metadata and information about across all photos, that's public domain, as well as sort of providing just quick, easy, provable ways to prove whether the photo is real. And since we're syncing essentially with the contracts and all these things in the back end, if you don't trust our data, you can still go and prove it for yourself.
Can you add like traits and things like that to it so that it makes it a little more searchable? So if I take a photo in Naples, Florida, I can add the traits of location, whatever, some other details.
I think the longer term is that we've been thinking is want a platform where you can essentially query, hey, I'm at this lat long, what photos were taken around me?
Right.
That
That's
are
what
real.
that's what I was thinking. Something like that.
Yep. And so we've repeatedly run into the problem that we need computation and storage to do some of these things. And we've had to do it ourselves essentially. Like who is
I think that's going to be the problem long term too for everything, is compute and storage are the two things that I think are the more and more I'm seeing I think watching Aether run out of storage so quickly because it was 24/7 and watching that all happen within a couple days really finally solidified the problem.
Well,
to me.
I think it's
like,
again, someone needs to pay for it's like if you want to query something, someone needs to pay for it. You need to pay for it, or you are going to be the product and someone else is going to pay for it. But like it still needs to be paid for in one form or another. And the storage and compute are not free, essentially. So either you pay it by gas, which is you can't buy a lot of storage and compute, or essentially you offer a service on top of it. And that's honestly the route that I think we're eventually going to go.
That makes sense. That's probably going to be the easiest thing. Is you're buying storage essentially,
right. Or it's like saying
something like that,
call
or
the
renting.
contract yourself, exactly, and call the contract yourself and prove it for yourself if you want to do the compute.
Opportunity to build your own.
Storage. Exactly. Yeah. Sounds like an opportunity for another client.
Sounds like an opportunity for another client. Yeah. Exactly.
But that's internally the issue that we've ran into repeatedly is like the IPFS images won't load. We don't have all the details. It's like everything takes too long for what we want to do. We want to run sort of more information on top of it. It's got to go somewhere. If it goes somewhere, it's and yeah. So anyway, that's kind of the other part of, I think, and what that ties into in the longer run is, look, I think there will be more devices and services in the longer run that actually are going to be C2PA compliant and CAI compliant, and devices that sort of notarize reality. Like this is not going to be the only device that's going to do this, I think. And so they're going to run into the same problem. Where is all this information? Where is all this data going to go? Where can I find this data? And so this is where it's led.
Adrienne, did you have a question? You had a question a while ago, and I don't know if we covered it. Do you remember what it was?
I've moved on to 3 more questions in my mind.
Okay,
I know we're gonna be running out of time soon.
Yeah.
July, I'm super excited. You were kind of at the pre-order beta point because I know you're talking about the camera and when were you on? When did we talk to you last on the show? Is that like April-ish? Felt
ago.
spring.
I
think so.
Pre-Farcon, right?
Yeah, I think so.
It was about
Denver. Yeah, somewhere around
it was like
April.
March-ish or something, March or April.
Yeah.
I think when we were announcing the first, like, hey, we're doing rock kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was long after your early announcement about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, congratulations to getting to this point. I'm curious what what's been the hardest part of this past year building, kind of to get to MVP or beta.
I think the hardest part is figuring out what to build. So the verifiably real photos, to be perfectly honest, we've had this idea, I don't know, probably like longer than a year and a half, maybe 2 years. We've explored a lot of different paths. We've done a lot of different things. And so choosing within that idea maze which one is the most viable, I think that's taken, it's, sometimes you try all these different things and you end up at the sort of simple conclusion when you're sort of forced to build it. And we, in a way it feels like, well, we could have done this like a year and a half ago. Like this is technically, of course, there's sort of limitations and things we need to overcome. Honestly, not the hard part. I think it's more of what is the sort of thesis? What is the most interesting part of this? How do we get this into people's hands? What is the most exciting way to explain this? What is a hook that makes sense? And I think in our case, we've chosen this sort of, in the age of AI, this sort of anxiety about, well, I don't know. Even if it is real, I don't know if it's real anymore.
Right.
Yeah. And obviously, like, we hang out in our crypto audience, so we understand cryptography, we understand proofs, we understand. So are you talking to people outside of the crypto world, and how's that message landing?
So I think it's actually landed in some way, when I explain to people that we're making a camera that takes verifiably real photos with no explanation around crypto or anything. The surprising thing is, I think the non-crypto people and honestly non-technical people have been able to understand it in under like 5 seconds.
That's good. That's really good.
That's been the
bodes
case.
well.
And
that bodes
there's
well.
there's no explanation about like, hey, we're doing a NFT or it's like just no, it's just the device and it's like this and it captures stuff and you can prove that it's actually real and that's the only thing that it does and people are like, great. How do we get more of these in the world? Is really the next question that usually we get.
Awesome. That's awesome to hear.
So again, just very little mention of very little dissonance.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Well, that's what that's one of the reasons why I think I'm so attracted to it as well, is because it's such a clear use case or benefit or kind of the utility that it doesn't require a lot of or any crypto knowledge, and being able to kind of talk to all the people in my life who aren't in this world. And it's like, oh yeah. And maybe they're not even thinking about deep fakes or AI, but they're just living it. So yeah, I'm excited.
If they're not thinking about it, they will be.
Yeah.
That's the thing. This is like, I think we're sort of also, in the larger population, very ahead of like 99% of the curve in terms of what generative AI can do and, playing around with Midjourney and all these things. And of course, like using ChatGPT, there's people out there that even I've spoken to, and I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, and there's sort of people that I've spoken to that have either, completely dismissed it or is just like, hasn't even heard of it. And it's still relatively early in this process of it being disseminated into people's hands. So if you just imagine that this is into people's hands in the same way that it's in, Google is in, it's starting to become valued in the same way, Google is, like Perplexity and Anthropic and OpenAI. So just imagine the use cases that those people will do. And out of those people, like if more and more people get onboarded, it just means that the number of these things will increase, and the desire and the need for a device like this is just kind of will skyrocket. Is my gut feeling.
I can totally see this being incorporated into like Meta's glasses or something, where you're just walking around and then you're tapping on the side and capturing. Like, I just saw this, And
I think our strategy is to kind of like
a lot of sense.
Front run that and build almost, where are these photos going to go? And can we almost build kind of a reality layer that is trustable that people go to? And that becomes sort of the new network effects. So,
we'll
see.
I have a couple other questions outside of rock. So before we move on from that though, Adrienne, anything else you wanted to ask about rock or Faust?
No, I think we covered it. I mean, I could talk all day, but
I know. And I know we don't have too much more time.
The basics, yeah.
But I wanted to ask you about Aether and sort of our AI bots and what you think about them. And I have on more than one occasion referred to Ethernet as July-esque in its conversations. So I was curious what you're thinking about in terms of those sort of interactions that you're seeing, and like, what are your thoughts about kind of what's happening on the timeline with that?
Yeah, I think Aether and these bots are super interesting. I do think some of the most interesting, like I'm less excited about the content and more excited about what it can do. And you know, the three that come to mind are more accounts like Super, Anon, Clanker, and Ethernet are all these sort of, people are fascinated by the idea that I think, to me, with the idea, the idea, the common thing, the common thread through all of them is fundamentally that a software program owns its private key, like hypothetically, kind of, but it's
Mhm.
this idea that it owns its private key and it can kind of be autonomous. I think it's fascinating because that's kind of a sort of larger theme that we've been building on more with Rock Camera, that the Rock Camera owns its private key. So there's no
Oh,
other
okay.
device that can use that private key. And I think in the longer term, vehicles, robots, devices, you know, you name it, will all have their own private key that's tamper-proof, meaning the owner of the device won't even be able to access that key.
That's really
And
interesting.
so,
Can we just pause on that for a sec, July? So like
Yeah,
in the case
that's
of like the
interesting.
Rock Camera, camera shows up your door, you unbox it, you take your photo. The camera has the private key, it's signing something. I, Adrienne, the owner, do not. So if someone else takes the camera from me,
Mm,
that camera is still taking pictures, that camera is verifying everything.
correct.
That's what's verifiable. It's not the
Correct.
person behind, it's not the photographer pressing the button.
We
That's
we've
really interesting.
purposefully made this, and we've gone longer lengths to. It's not a camera that you can, you know, add your wallet or anything. No, this is like an autonomous device
I
that
love
owns
that.
itself essentially. And
That's really
at
interesting.
least we think that in the longer term, part of our bet is just vehicles, robots. Like in a way, it's you know, trying to Trojan horse an entire vehicle or robot into people's hands. More than,
Interesting.
we just think that's the longer term path, rather than this is like a cool, you know, it's not for, it's like it owns itself. It's not really for other people, but it'll be autonomously for other people. I think in the same way, eventually, that Clanker and Ethernet and less to a
That's
less
really
extent,
interesting.
but SuperNon has its own key as well. So
Yeah. Yeah, true.
Okay.
but it
My
owns
brain
like a
just went
ZK
to
program, right?
my brain just went to all these other devices out there in the world, like just doing telemetry, picking up like
Mhm.
just going into and storing data that it's pulling, like
Mhm.
weather, irrigation, farm, like just how many devices out there. And I'm going. You guys keep
Yeah.
talking. My brain's
And
going to
that's
fly
why
into.
you
I'm
need
thinking
a
about all
lot
the
more
things.
compute and a lot more data storage.
Yep.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Yep.
Because it's not
So
going to
we
be just
just,
people. It's going to be the things
not
that
gonna be
have,
people.
yeah.
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 And also, this is
Wow.
more, you know, coming from the background of robotics and doing autonomous vehicles. The fastest growing part of every robotics company that I've been a part of is the sensor data. And about, I would say,
Mm,
80 to 90% of it has been photos and images and video. So if you are running, you know, cameras at 1080p, 5 cameras on each side of the vehicle, driving around for a couple hours, you just like break a terabyte,
right.
no problem.
Right.
So
Yeah.
what are you going to do with all this data? Now you collected all this data and you have to downsample it and you have to do all these things, but fundamentally they have to go somewhere. So to a certain extent, you can prove certain things that are happening in there. So it's like if you take, you know, if you do, if you run like a ML inference on the video, you can take certain things out of it. But if you can even do that and prove that you saw people in the video, you could prove that. Anyway, it just becomes really interesting because I think that's also a fast growing part. And if you try to look for sensor data on the internet, it's just like, again, don't know if it was simulator generated or if it was just running into the same problem over and over again.
I saw a video of, speaking of sensor data, of 4 Waymos like stuck at an intersection because there was a Amazon truck that was double parked. And it was just, they didn't know how to navigate the situation based on the sensors, because they, just can't take the risks that a human would take to go around the truck. And it was very interesting to see. I haven't had a chance to ride in one yet, but I've heard a lot of people talking about them. Last time I was in LA, because Waymo had just come to LA, but it was still limited in certain areas. And it was interesting to hear their experience being just, they loved it, absolutely loved it, and felt much safer than they did in an Uber in LA, which, there's not much things that wouldn't make you feel safer than an Uber in LA. So, but I thought that was, when you're talking about the sensors, that makes me think about that. And then you can totally see like a camera of this type coming in so handy in driving situations as well, like having that captured if, for either for specific instances or just constantly going, and just, maybe the human triggers when it's actually captured, but or saved or something like that. But so many different interesting experiments happening right now. I do want to ask you about this discussion you were having about UAPs. This was really interesting. You skimmed the whole hearing docs for the recent UAP hearings, and UAP is essentially UFOs, but different. So there was recently a large hearing, and I'm going to just read this and then ask you a little bit about it. But this is something you had casted. A few things I found fascinating reading through the UAP hearing doc. I skimmed Golden Schellenberger's hearing docs, 400 pages. UAPs are a real unexplained phenomena. We can say this without knowing what they are. First step is acknowledging this. Vehicles have mass. They show up on visual spectrum, radar, and infrared. They have a pretty big radar cross section. They aren't stealth. Vehicles are transmedium, seamlessly move through different mediums like water, air, space, etc., show no signs of causing friction. Vehicle has autonomous control. They react to the planes or other vehicles around it. They react based on what's going on around them. That means they have sensors, a control system, path planning, etc. Vehicles have non-combustion engine propulsion. Field of propulsion is some sort of manipulating gravity, etc., are properties that this vehicle has shown to exhibit. Vehicles move in a super high G maneuvers. Really interesting. And again, like as we're talking about verifiable images and things like that, this is another area where I feel like it could be really useful of, this happened at this time. I verified it. Like, here you go. Instead of the debates of, is this real? Is this fake? Is this, are these weather balloons? All the usual stuff. But what did you take from, like, those are really interesting thoughts that you shared. And then like, it got me just thinking about all kinds of different things in terms of, you have worked on a lot of different things like autonomous vehicles and flying cars and all this kind of stuff. When you see this kind of technology, like do you think if we could unlock that technology, what does that open up for us in sort of the next 50 years or something? I know it's a big question.
Yeah.
It's a big question.
I mean, I think so first thing is, by UAP, I just want to clarify, like, we don't know if this is alien in origin, like extraterrestrial or whatever. I think that's still fairly uncertain. It could be advanced military technology from foreign nations. It could be internally from the United States. It could, I think that's the hearing itself, or at least the parts of the hearing that I was most curious about were less about that, because that's much more difficult to say anything about. That's interesting. What I was particularly interested was again, and part of the hearing actually covers this, where they're discussing physical evidence, like actual visual spectrum, It shows up on the radar as a radar cross section. So like radar cross section is essentially how big the vehicle shows up on the radar. So for example, like a stealth vehicle is like the size of a like a small bird. So like an F117, RCS for F117 is like a bird. But if you have an RCS for like a very big plane, like it shows up as a very big plane. These show up actually on radar, which means that you can bounce sound waves off of it, or you can bounce waves off of it, and you can actually detect, like, there's a certain level of confidence that these things have some matter, which is, means that this exists in some form, probably. And I think that means that, it can do some different kinds of maneuvers. There's other sort of like different things. I think, it morphs shapes. It's like, there's other less interesting things, like there's reports of it being certain kinds of shapes, like, tic-tac shaped or disc shaped or an orb kind of stuff. But to me, the interesting part was what they can do. Like, if they're sort of physically sensible via, today's sensors, like they don't have any stealth or anything, and they're exhibiting certain characteristics, there's no reason that it essentially means that it's possible. And if it means that it's possible, like, we can do all of these things in pretty much due time, because it means that the current physical, like the current limit is physical reality. It's physics, essentially. So if you know this is physically possible, we're talking about, okay, there's essentially different, it's sort of like realizing that someone has summited Everest, or probably like something like K2, because K2 is actually harder. And you're like, oh, like this is actually summitable. So like we can do all these things. If anything, I think it shows within however many decades it takes, we're probably going to get to all these things.
That's wild. Yeah, it's it seems like, if we, some of our best and brightest could just get their hands on the actual UAP, they could be reverse engineering a whole bunch of really interesting things. So that's to me, it feels like that's not that far off in the distant future.
There's a separate conversation altogether about the philosophical reason of its existence, which I think is also interesting, but it's less concretely discussthink it's interesting in its own way, and maybe I feel like I think there's a lot of, and some people in that thread like spoke about some interesting consequences of what they could be and things like that, and that's also interesting as well. But I feel like we could spend a whole episode.
This could be like very long, but there's a lot of interesting points in this thread. So if you are interested in diving in more, there's also the link to all the docs here, so you can dive in and check that out.
Specifically, the last two hearings were the ones that I looked into the most.
And okay, let me click into that, see if it'll open up for me.
So if you scroll down, it says witnesses and testimonies. It says Michael Gold and Michael Schellenberger and Tim Gallaudet. Those were the ones that I mostly looked at. Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. So you can check everything out that is on this particular topic, and super interesting. It's a major rabbit hole, though. You dive down there, you're going to be there for a little bit because there's a lot there. But it is interesting to see us finally having hearings around this stuff, because normally this is done, in the dark. Where
also another interesting thing about it. Just sorry, one more thing that I just remembered. There's sort of like reports of it being verified. So one of the data, one of the slides was about resolution of reported UAPs, and I think like some high percentage of them were weather balloons. Some high percentage of them were, these like essentially various different things like airplanes. There's been lots of like the Starlink satellites have been mistaken for essentially a trail of UAPs. But essentially there's like, I think it was like, I can't remember the exact number, so don't quote me on this, but like 10 or 20% that were essentially like completely unexplained. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
there's still a solid amount of, like, we cannot categorize this using, and so most of the information has come out of, that I was looking into was about those unexplained phenomena.
Right.
And
Yeah, those are
but,
that's the things that are more interesting. It seems like
yeah,
from the technical perspective of like, how is that doing that? That
right,
kind of thing. Whereas some of the other ones, once you figure out what they are, then it makes sense.
yeah.
So it can be explained
And
away.
again, to be
Yeah.
perfectly honest, I think if you talk with anyone who flies commercial or has flown in the military, this is kind of like an open secret.
Yeah. Totally. We've been
It's been around for, like, this is like
very
a
long time.
consistent thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
like-
it's just more, there's just more information about it, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, it's mostly been the sort of behind the scenes, and people kind of know but don't really know, or don't know what's real and what's not. And but it's been, very kind of kept quiet. And this to me feels like we're opening the curtain a little bit to
I think it's,
probably not everything, but a lot more than we've ever had. So
exactly. And I think in a way, in this scenario, sort of similar to how I see it even with crypto, where the government being involved in having clarity over certain topics and issues makes this more legitimate and makes it something to look into as an actual phenomena. In the same way, the parallel that I see is with the SEC not clarifying how tokens should be handled.
right.
And so consequently now it's become this sort of seedy thing in a lot of people's minds, which I think it could be turned around. And similarly, if you sort of shed light on what can be legally done and what cannot be legally done in a sort of at least some investigation into it.
Right.
And at least with this UAP, to me, it's just trending more in that direction, which makes it less of a, at one point, cars had a conspiracy theory because it wasn't sort of readily available, that or trains, right? Like, I think if you go, there's some doctor report from the early 1900s that if you go fast, or, late 1800s, that if you go faster than 60 miles per hour, your skin falls off and, like, you would, like, people would die. So you cannot go beyond faster than a certain point. It's just not okay. And, it's like these things have conspiracy theories happen when there's no sort of way to verify.
Yeah.
Exactly. Through a scientific method or otherwise.
Exactly what we've been talking about.
Yeah, exactly. But the edge of information is always, like, the edge of something new is always going to be riddled. It's the Wild West, right? It's always going to be riddled with speculators and grifters and conspiracy theorists. But in that, there's always interesting things.
I think that's the
more
best.
that it can become legitimate.
It's the best, like, understanding is thinking about the Wild West. And if you've learned any history, and if you kind of dive into that, and then you think about, like, trains, and you think about, like, all the innovations that came and what they led to, and you can see a lot of those things repeated, but in different ways. And it's a really, really good way to think about it, because that the Wild West part of it isn't going to last forever. So it's everything in its time finds its, like, normalcy. But just some things take longer than others. Adrienne, anything else that you wanted to tackle? We need to wrap up here. We've been chatting for a while, but anything I missed that you wanted to mention?
No, I didn't even know we were going into UAPs today.
I had to ask.
That was quite the detour.
I had to ask. I saw that cast and I was
So
like, I have
good.
to ask about this, because that was really interesting. And so now we're officially now the Joe Rogan podcast. We're talking about aliens. Cool.
We're so much better.
So much better.
No,
Anything
we did-
else? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Adrienne.
No, I said we did a lightning round last time, so I won't do it this time. I'll just ask one question. Are we living in a simulation?
Ooh, good question.
I think I'm going to add that to my lightning round questions.
It's a good question.
I just want to know.
Depends what you mean by simulation. I think that's the sort of longer story. But I think if you.
Ooh, wait! Did we lose him? Oh, there you go.
No,
Sorry,
we're good.
You are.
I'm just
You're
getting
there.
I'm getting a phone call on my. I think the simulation cut off for a second.
That's what I thought.
So
that timing was really
I got
interesting.
disconnected. No, I think the yeah, it does seem like being able to, continuously. I feel like human progress has been about how to create theories and models to understand what sort of natural reality, natural science is continuously, with kind of this goal to figure out what the simulation. It's like the ultimate question is how much of a simulation are we in? And each stage and each
I think the
discovery is about uncovering that.
The thought that it might be a simulation sometimes just is what keeps me going for the things I can't explain. Like, this has to be a simulation. I just can't.
It's comforting. Like it's comforting to
Totally.
But I will say that I think there's like fundamental, laws of the universe that exists, and I think that's really interesting, right? Like very fundamental laws of physics, for example, and so I feel like the level to which we know what the laws of the simulation are is like so little that it's not even feels like a simulation for us.
That could be it.
All right.
Wow.
I was just like,
all right. And I decided I realized this is not a good lightning round question. No one's going to answer it quickly.
There's no lightning
round. Everyone's
got to
give.
Yes, the answer is yes. We're in a simulation.
Okay, good. Thank you.
All right, and with that, we're going to end it here. Thank you for here with us. We're super excited to get our
I think she froze.
All right, I'm getting, I don't know. Okay. I thought it was on my end, but it looks like Prof might have cut out.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm streaming from a new place today, so I was expecting my internet not to last, but I think we're good. So if you're hearing us and not Prof, thank you for joining. July